Hi everyone, in this video we'll be going over A-Level Accounting 2023 October-November Paper 2 question number 3. This is Paper 2 which consists of 4 questions. 2 of them will be of 30 marks and 2 of them will be of 15 marks. The total time limit given for this paper is 1 hour and 45 minutes. Since question number 3 is of 15 marks, ideally you should be spending about 17.5 minutes in order to solve this question. And in this video as well, we'll be attempting to solve this question within 17.5 minutes. So without any further delay, let's get started. Malik prepared a sales ledger control account for July 2023. However, the balance of the control account did not agree with the total of the customer's account balances in the sales ledger. He provided the following information. We are given the sales ledger control account balance at the opening date. For the month of July 2023, we are given the contra for purchases ledger. We are given the sales journal value. We are given the cash book for the customer checks dishonored, cash book for discounts allowed. Then we are given journal for irrecoverable debts. We are given the cash book for receipts from credit customers as well as the sales returns journal. Always remember that for our sales ledger control account, we use our books of prime entry, which means that we'll be using the value from our journals and the cash book within our sales ledger control account. But if we're talking about the sales ledger account, in this case, we'll be writing down the values according to our customer's account balances. Let's have a look at the errors. The following errors were discovered which accounted for the difference. The balance of a sales ledger customer's account, which means that this will have an effect into the ledger account, not the sales ledger control account. And it had been undercast by 300. We're talking about sales ledger customer's account, which had been undercast, which means that our sales is being understated within our sales ledger. So we just have to add this 300 to our sales ledger balances. Then for the second error, the total of the sales returns journal. This is journal, so this will have an effect on the control account. It had been overcast by 580. So it has been overstated, which means in order to rectify this error, we have to subtract 580 from our sales returns journal, which is right here. So that's 2090 minus 580, which will result in the amount of 1510. This is the correct sales returns journal. Then a journal entry to write off a customer account balance of 95 as irrecoverable debt had been correctly entered. So we have the correct entry in our journal. There will be no problem within our sales ledger control account, but had been posted to the debit side of the customer's account. So this is incorrect because we had to post it to the credit side of the customer's account because the customer is now unable to pay us the 95, which is why we termed it as irrecoverable debt. But this was entered on the debit side, so that's incorrect. Now whenever we have to rectify the error on which we had previously made an entry on the opposite side, we have to make the entry on the correct side twice. So if we write 95 once on our credit side, it will get cancelled out with the previous entry on the debit side, but it will not be able to show the correct balance for irrecoverable debt, which is why we have to show 95 twice on the credit side of the customer's account. And the credit side in the customer's account just means that we need to subtract this amount. This will have the value of 190. So in order to rectify this error, we have to subtract 190 from the sales ledger balance. For the fourth one, a check received from a customer 320 had been correctly entered in the cash book, which is our book of prime entry, so we'll have no problem for our sales ledger control account, but had been posted to the debit side of the customer's account as 230. Again, it's an error on the opposite side because we received the check from customer, which means that customer is the giver in this case, and the giver should always be on the credit side. Now, first we need to subtract the 230 from the debit side by entering the same amount on the credit side. And again, whenever we're entering the amount on the credit side, it just means that we need to subtract it. So firstly, we'll have to subtract the incorrect amount of 230. Then we also need to show the correct amount of 320 on the credit side. Again, it's on the credit side, which means that we need to subtract it again. So that will be another minus 320, which results in the amount of 550. So the correct entry for this error would be subtracting 550 from our sales ledger balances. Now, a further dishonored check from a customer 215 had not been entered in the cash book. So this is our book of prime entry and it had not been entered in the cash book, which means that this will have an effect on our control account. So we need to enter this 215 into our cash book for the customer checks dishonored right here. So that will be 22 plus 215, which results in the total of 237. This is the correct total for the customer checks dishonored. but it had been correctly entered in the customer's account, so we will have no problem within our sales ledger balances. Then the list of customer account balances extracted from the sales ledger totaled 69,211. This is our total sales ledger balance. Okay. For the first part, we need to prepare the sales ledger control account for the month of July 2023, taking into account the errors discovered. We have already corrected the errors within the balances that we will enter within our sales ledger control account. Let's start with the opening balance of 76,250. And we're talking about sales ledger control account, which calculates the amount for our trade receivables, which is an asset. And for asset, our opening balance will always be on the debit side. So this amount will go on the debit side. That's our opening balance of 76,250. Alright, we then have contra. Contra will always be on the credit side within our sales ledger control account. So that will be 420 on the credit side under the heading of contra. Then we have the sales journal amount, and this is the total of our credit sales, which will increase the value of the trade receivables, which is why this will go on the debit side. And we can write it under the heading of sales. That's 69,634. Then we have the cash book, customer checks dishonored. This will again increase the value that we are yet to receive from our credit customers, which is why we need to record it on the debit side. And we can write it under the heading of cash book. That's 237. We can also write it under the heading of bank, since this was a dishonored check. Then we have the discounts allowed, which will reduce the amount that we need to receive from our credit customers. So this will go on the opposite side, that's the credit side, and we can write it under the heading of discount allowed or cash book. We then have the irrecoverable debts, which will again reduce the amount that we are yet to receive from our credit customers. So this will be on our credit side under the heading of journal or irrecoverable debt. We then have our receipts from credit customers, which will now reduce the amount that we are yet to receive. So this will go on the credit side as well, and we can write it under the heading of bank or cash book. And lastly, we have our sales returns journal, which will reduce the amount that we need to receive from our credit customers. So again, this will go on the credit side as well. We can write it under the heading of sales returns or journal. Alright, now we can figure out our closing balance. Let's first figure out the total from the debit side. That will be 76,250 plus 69,634 plus 237, which results in 146,121. That will be the total for the credit side as well. Then we need to subtract all of this from the total in order to get the value for our closing balance. So that's going to be 146,121 minus 1,510 minus 74,118 minus 410 minus 892 minus 420, which results in the value of 68,771. We also need to show this closing balance as the opening balance for next period on the opposite side. So that will be our balance brought down with the same amount of 68,771. That's all for the first part. Let's move towards the second one. We now need to prepare a schedule of the corrected sales ledger account balances. We have already figured out which errors will have to be rectified within our sales ledger. So that was error 1, then we had error 3 and error 4. So in order to rectify error 1, we just have to add 300. In order to rectify error 3, we just need to subtract 190. In order to rectify error 4, we just need to subtract 550. Let's write it down. For error 1, we need to add 300. So that's increase. For error 3, we need to subtract 190, which will be decrease. Then for error 4, we again need to subtract 540. So the total will just be plus 300 minus 190 minus 550, which results in negative 440. Now, if you adjust this to the given total, that will be 69,211 minus 440, which results in 68,771. And we know that this is correct because we can see that the balance for our sales ledger control account as well as the sales ledger balance is equal. So we have done part A and B correctly. Let's move towards the third part. We now need to state two limitations of preparing a control account. So the very first limitation is that not all type of errors can be figured out by preparing a control account, because we cannot really identify the errors of commission, omission, principal, original entry, and others by preparing a control account. That would be our first limitation. Does not identify errors of commission, omission, principal, original entry, and others. Then the second limitation is that we cannot really figure out whether or not the individual account balances for our customers are correct, because we only prepare the overall balances for all customers, not individual customers. So does not indicate that individual account balances are correct. Okay, this is all for question 3. If you found this video useful, make sure you like the video and leave a comment below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you do not miss any of these videos in the future. Thank you.